Thanks, Vanessa. Okay, so this last session was a short session. It went very fast, which is awesome. It's much better than going through a long session. This one was basically a slam dunk session for us. And we were able to comment on a handful of bills that we felt really represented our memberships and Oregon Farmers Association. So your team this session was Fire Marshal Laura Ratcliffe, Fire Marshal Travis Worthington, Deputy Fire Marshal Anne Marie Storms, Fire Marshal Steve Forster, and Fire Marshal Tanner Farrington. Their expertise and their experiences really brought forward a very meaningful discussions, being able to explain the why with some of these bills. And we worked together on this to stay on top of these bills, because this is a fast-paced, fast-moving environment that really needs us to be attentive. So this group of individuals was extremely helpful, and thank you so much for all their time and efforts there during this session. A couple of the things as we focus on legislative sessions is we always try to build from our previous experience. There's been a lot of learning curves, and we're starting to get to that point where we're really focusing in on key things that help us improve every single time. So from the OFMA side, we're really the experts in the technical end of these bills. So anything related to fire code, building code, NFPA type standards, we really try to provide the best input and the best guidance collectively for our stakeholders, for OFCA, for OSFM, OBOA, and we try to really be that technical voice and the fire and life safety aspect of these bills. Partnerships is one of the key components to this to make us successful. And success for us isn't whether or not we passed a bill. Success for us is us collaborating, coming together, talking about a bill, and being on the same page or not being on the same page. So it's extremely important, because the fire service collectively representing Oregon, and for us to come in on a collective front is a huge win for us, and legislators listen. So we have their voice, and now we try to be really strategic about when we apply our voice and how we apply it in written testimony or verbal testimony. Like I was saying, so this is continuous improvement. I would say this is the fourth session that we've been a part of. Prior to that, we didn't have much OFMA involvement, and maybe we did years ago, but my experiences over the last few years, we weren't at the table, but we are definitely now at the table now, and we are being heard. So it's very appreciative, it's fun, and it's very noteworthy, and excellent efforts all across the board from all our players with this. So it's been good. Oh, apologize. So to start off, here are about 4 or 5 bills that OFMA did provide comment on, or we had discussions with OFC and OSFM on. And just to remind you, OSFM does come at this as a neutral stance and does not have written comment on a lot of these bills. And OFCA and OFMA are really the key voices to these bills and helping support and driving those directions. So House Bill 4160A with amendments, we did comment on this one and supported this. This bill was the AED bill that a number of years ago had passed that required schools and e-occupancies to have AEDs. This was a partnership bill that really followed up with how the emergency plan was going to be in effect. So it was a very worthy bill. Great, you have your AEDs in your schools, but there was nothing in place that told you that you will conduct a plan, you will have drills, you will learn how to use those in case there's an emergency cardiac event. So this bill was a very slam dunk bill. It was very well supported by legislators, and it passed. House Bill 4080, this was a lot of discussion, a lot of partnerships, talking with legislators, talking with all our key players, looking across the US, finding out where other bills that were similar to this. Utah did end up passing a bill. I don't remember that specific number, but they did pass a portable solar bill. Thankfully, we did not. We helped support, and I mean this very politely, we killed the bill, but with due regard to the lack of UL listings, the lack of any NFPA standards or any standard to begin with that would allow a multifamily tenant to attach up to 1,200 watts of solar panels onto their balcony, onto their deck. A lot of red flags with this. We felt in talking with the Oregon Firefighters Council that it was unsafe. It would create barriers with exiting. It would create barriers with trying to ladder up a second story, third story balconies for firefighters for emergency egress. Biggest aspect of this would basically have provided a means for tenants to basically plug and play a solar system into a 120 volt outlet. Now, there's devices on Amazon that you could purchase right now that would allow you to do that. And you're literally completely bypassing your circuit breakers, your panels, and there's no safeguarding for those systems. That wasn't quite in place yet, and the language wasn't in place that would require the safeguarding for these portable solar panels. There are devices that have the inverters in between that would convert the power from AC to DC power or DC to AC power, and that would have the safeguards in between with the disconnects. But right now, it wasn't in place, and so we did take an opposing stance to this bill. We will definitely see this. This bill was actually withdrawn in the committee, which is good, in realizing that between us and OFCA, we had a voice of like, hey, there's significant concerns here. Let's talk at the table after this session. So we'll definitely see this bill come back up. Senate Bill 1551, which was a fire hardened materials type bill, in a nutshell, would allow homeowners to voluntarily home harden their homes without the HOAs telling them they couldn't do it. So, for example, if you had a combustible cedar fence between your neighbors and your place, and you wanted to install a fire hardened type material that would minimize or has the potential to minimize fire spread in the rural setting, a homeowner could do that, but the HOAs would still be able to have, like, it's going to have to meet certain standards. It's going to have to look a certain way. So that was a plus. Went on both sides. You're not completely shutting out HOAs concerns, but you're also considering the voluntary home hardened materials. So that bill passed. Here's another, I would say, significant win is House Bill 4144. This was a battery recycling bill that was presented early on with some great discussions. And like many of us, especially Clackamas Fire's jurisdiction, we have seen 5 to 6 battery recycling fires in our warehouses, in our recycling facilities. This bill would take it upon the manufacturer to provide the means to recycle these batteries before they make it to the landfill. This is a huge win because it has high potential to lower fire risks. It has high potential to lower emissions from when we do have these recycling plant fires. Safety factors for our firefighters, for the occupants. So it's a huge win across the board. But for this one, one thing that we do have to consider when OFMA does put our name out there is what are going to be the fiscal impacts. So this one, we came in a neutral stance with the idea that, hey, this would reduce fires, but we had to consider also that it's going to have a financial impact to the consumers and to the manufacturers. So this was a good win. This is a great win on this. So we'll see more to come on this throughout the state here as this program progresses. This will also fund a full-time FTE for DEQ because DEQ is going to manage the program. So, and lastly, House Bill 4120 is, we did not comment on this, but it did pass. We did not comment on this one because it was really focused towards health. And within the body of the bill, it really didn't specify fire or reduction of fire, but it was really geared towards health concerns for the occupants or for tenants. But this bill did pass. And so we all know as investigators that we do get cigarette fires in rental properties, multifamilies, high-risk occupancies. So even though we did not comment on this, this is still a win for our world of fire marshal work and our investigation. So hopefully maybe we'll see a reduction in fires. So those are the bills that we supported this session. So looking forward, 2027, hopefully, sounds like we've all talked as a team, and your team will still be, as we listed in the previous slides, for the 2027 long session. And the long session is generally run from February to June, which is it's a hardcore axe to grind because it's a fast paced, a lot moving and a lot presented. So we've got a strong front of individuals who are knowledgeable, who have now experienced at least a short session and will be ready to go for the 2027 long session. One of the bills that was not heard for this last session was a smoke alarm bill, which was presented by the Kidda Corporation. And most of you have seen the OARs related to smoke alarms is about 15 to 20 years old. So what Kidda Corporation is looking to do is change the language to be all inclusive for all types of smoke alarms, not just ionization smoke alarms. Technology has changed, has drastically improved the last how many years. So their goal is to rewrite that language during this next session. And on our end, from what we saw before, maybe things will change, but from OFMA standpoint, looks like something that we will definitely support and make comment on and testify here at this next session. Well, between now and next session, we're going to continue to stay engaged. We're going to continue to work with OFCA, OSFM, OBOA, all the alphabet soup abbreviations. We're going to be right there at the table, maintaining the partnerships and keeping our ears and eyes open for anything that's going to be presented coming up for the long session. I don't have anything else. That'll be the end of my report. So I will turf this over to Chief Brian Stewart.
Thanks, Sean. Appreciate the updates and appreciate the opportunity to be with the Oregon Fire Chief Marshals Association today. I think Sean shared it well. Every legislative session is always about collaboration and I'll say moving the ball forward. Yes, we want to pass bills. Yes, we want to defeat bills. Yes, we want to do all those things depending on what that context is. But ultimately, it's about building relationships, building credibility, building the skill set for everybody who's engaged, because teams evolve and teams change, and it shouldn't be about one person. It should be about the process and about our ability to influence our interests and work with our partners to do the same for years to come. So the Oregon Fire Chiefs Association, much like Sean shared, we have our legislative team. I chair our legislative efforts, and then we have Division Chief Brian Smith out of Tualatin Valley as from OFCA. Then we hire the Victory Group, which is our lobbyists. We've had them for 2 sessions now, and we do that in a joint legislative partnership with the Fire and EMS chapter of SDAO. So SDAO is the Fire and EMS chapter is a subset of SDAO, and their member on our team and us being on their team as a partnership is Chief Ben Stengy out of Polk County 1. Next slide. So I thought what I'd share just a couple thoughts on the concept of the session. So as Sean shared, it's a short session, 35 days in and out. And on top of that, there is just no money this year. It's very clear from leadership on both sides from both chambers and on both sides of the aisle that if there was a fiscal attached to it, just don't expect it to move forward. Don't waste our time with it. We've got other stuff to deal with. And a couple of the things that they had to deal with, there are a few big ones, but transportation was one. You see just kind of 2 bullet points up there. Senate Bill 1504 and Senate Bill 1601 are both bills that affected DOT transportation funding. And collectively between them, they're saving about $300 million from the budget this fiscal year. for Department of Transportation. Some of that's through vacancies, and some of that is through not awarding grant funds. If people had been already awarded grant funds for particular projects, those would be moving forward. But so they looked at what they could save from not putting grant funds out there. And then Senate Bill 1599, you may recall there was a big transportation package passed last year. Republicans went out to the voters, said, hey, we want you to have some direct input on this. It took components of that package from last year that was going to go on the ballot in November. Back and forth, back and forth. The Democrats worked through this session with Senate Bill 1599 to get that moved to the May election. And with that, we expected and subsequently have the Republicans have filed a legal action against that, which was denied by a Marion County judge. So it looks like it's moving forward onto the May election, but maybe there will be some appeals there or other efforts. And then lastly, the federal disconnect bill. So our state income taxes have been tied for the vast majority of it with federal income taxes. And so if a federal income tax changes what it collects or what its bracket is, that affects what our revenue becomes. And so with our deficit and with the changes that HR 1, the One Big Beautiful Bill made, the Oregon State Legislature pushed forward some tax breaks, or excuse me, well, I guess they did. They did a couple things, but it's expected to preserve ish $300 million again by reducing some of the deductions. Like you can no longer deduct your car interest payment or interest for your car payment, but it also expands the state income earned tax credit and small job creation credits of like up to $10,000 per employee for up to like 15 employees. So some changes there, but those certainly took a lot of time, energy, and focus. And so we were advised that, be diligent, be purposeful in what we brought forward. Next slide, Sean. And so we had a few things that we were working on. And so the first one, House Bill 4053, EMS modernization, was brought forward by Rep. Graber out of her office. This was a continuation from last year. There was another EMS modernization package, one portion of which passed last year, which was increasing the volunteer EMS responder tax credit from $500 to $1,000. But the bigger package did not pass last year, primarily due to the fiscal impact of it. So the representative rebooted it this year. No fiscal impact, or it might have had a minor fiscal, which is essentially no fiscal impact. But there weren't any dedicated dollars really to it. It does establish a fund that allows us to put money into it, which is important in terms of federal grant dollars, charitable giving, future legislative dollars, so we can have some targeted funds towards EMS. Did a little bit on the structure makeup of some EMS committees, particularly with seniors, and then renaming kind of the child or pediatric committee. A few other pieces in there for innovation, although not funded at this point. House Bill 4156 was a ground emergency medical transport bill. This was one where OFCA was the proponent of it. Reps Greg Smith out from Central Oregon offered the opportunity for us to have one of his priority bills. And I don't know if Sean mentioned it, but this session being a short session, each legislator was offered 2 bills, which was very constrained. So it was very appreciated that we were able to utilize one of those bills to work on ground emergency medical transport. Just like the federal tax disconnect bill was inspired by HR 1, this bill was very similarly done with that and some other conversations out of this administration on ground emergency medical transport and CMS, or that Medicare, Medicaid funding generally. This didn't have any impact fiscally, and really all it does is preserve our ability to collect GEMT funds should the federal government change its requirements for how you report and how you fund that locally. So it was I'll say a preemptive approach based on a lot of signals from the feds about what's coming forward. and we've worked with OHA, wanting to make sure that our pipeline of about $18 million that the Oregon Fire Service receives through this program continues to be received for those that provide ground emergency medical transport. Kind of a critical piece, and we wanted to make sure that we were proactive, and it went well, very well supported across the chambers and across both parties. See, Sean already talked about 4160, and then HCR 201 recognized the 75th anniversary of the Oregon Fire District Directors Association. So that's kind of cool. 75 years ago, back in it was 1950, fall of 1950, OFDDA was born. They provide a lot of leadership, a lot of instruction, conferences, and then one of the key things that they provide for our volunteers across the state is they administer what's called the LOSAP program, or the Length of Service Award program, which allows us to provide monetary contributions within IRS tax guidelines that can be kind of like a deferred comp program. They do time, they get credits, those credits convert to dollars, and those get put away for them either for when they retire as a volunteer, or if they have like a family emergency where they need to access those funds. But OFDDA has done a lot over the last 75 years. They're a terrific partner every year in the legislature. It's going to be different having Genoa also move on, and I've really appreciated her collaboration and partnership over the years. Bills we successfully amended or negotiated. So these are bills that were not out of us, but House Bill 4108 was an annexation bill, and it looked to allow cities to annex non-contiguous lands if they were providing utilities to those lands. Has far-reaching implications for special districts outside of just fire across the state. And that was one where really SDAO leaned in with our support, but leaned in to work with the bill sponsors on some amendments. You'll see it in a couple slides, but that was really amended down to a particular need down with the city of Eugene and some territory down there. So really limited the impact there, but strong work was done by all. Kudos to Mark Landauer on so many times, him and Hasina Wittenberg, when it comes to working on issues that are broader than just fire districts. They often do a lot of the heavy lifting along with the Victor Group representing the fire interests for us. And then Senate Bill 1586, enterprise zone expansion focused out towards the Hillsborough area, has impacts. Enterprise zones, much like urban renewal districts or vertical housing abatements, provide the opportunity for businesses to come in or cities to attract businesses by reducing their tax load. What that does is it requires us as fire service to provide services without commensurate taxes to fund those. So you end up stripping resources from people who are already paying full taxes to cover this growth, so on and so forth. I bet most of you understand the kind of the concepts there with TIF or whatever it may be, some version thereof. So this is one where we worked with the bill sponsor and actually had the enterprise zone component of this bill removed. They looked at having some expansions going from 3 to 5 years to up to 10 years and some different mechanisms in there. But that one was successful in removing, although the bill ultimately and all the components of the bill didn't move forward. Other bills that we expressed concerns with that died. Sean already talked about the plug-in solar. I don't think, Sean, you talked about 1507, which that number should be, I believe, 1540, which was Golden's wildfire insurance bill. The idea there was that if you make certain mitigations on your own property, that should translate to some defined benefit in insurance reduction, which conceptually, I think everybody agrees with having some form of motivator or incentive for people to make those improvements onto their properties, being a fantastic idea. The challenge that the state saw is that if you force insurers to provide certain benefits on a property by property basis at this point, that may not translate to commensurate insurance loss reductions. because of house-to-house transmission, because it's not just what one person does, but it's about the properties as a whole, and concerns about if this was done on a property basis today, rather giving us the opportunity to get some community risk reduction pieces in there to work with the 1551 results of home hardening being able to be more easily implemented across those communities with restrictions like HOAs, that it could drive up insurance costs or drive insurers out of the state, which would then ultimately drive up insurance costs and is not the intent that we want to see. We want to make sure that people do the right benefits, but are also able to afford to be in their homes. And then Senate Bill 1531, EMS as universal health care. It was an interesting bill out of the Eugene area on how do you fund public or private transport for emergency medical services. This wasn't intended, this phrase I think is a little broader than the actual intent of the bill. The intent of the bill was how do you fund ambulance transport, make sure that we don't have ambulance deserts, make sure that you have the appropriate response times and transportation times across the state. Well-intentioned, just needs some more development before it was ready for prime time. So that I'm sure will continue as a discussion in the background. May or may not come back next session, but I expect that the idea is out there and will continue to be reviewed. And then just a couple thoughts, state budgets, really this is about OSFM, but generally lots of places got dinged. Every state agency was required to go through an exercise. I believe it was like 5 and maybe it was 2% and 5% cuts. And you may remember State Fire Marshal had expressed some cuts earlier in the year as governors had to try to rein in spending, such as, and continues to persist, limited outside of the state travel, that's still in place. But OSFM did fare well, receiving $9.5 million in community risk reduction funding. We received $6 million for wildfire season upstaffing. Those are grants that individual agencies can receive up to $35,000 to add seasonal staffing. It's kind of wonky how the staffing lines up with the fiscal or how the funding lines up with the wildfire season. So this $6 million is actually for the 2027 wildfire season. And then $7 million for the emergency response program. And then the only reduction that OSFM saw was there's like $203,000 or $208,000 in reduction to their IT budget. So they fared well. And again, that $9.5 million, that $6 million will be translated to local dollars for our organizations. Sean's already talked about rooftop. This did not update. Sean and I were working off a shared document, but the 4080 bill is really portable solar or balcony solar bills. We already talked wildfire insurance and EMS. That must be a duplicate slide in there. The top one there, House Bill 4108, that we talked about earlier, was kind of limited down to Eugene to annex those non-contiguous lands. Chief Olson had already mentioned House Bill 4120. So 4134 and 4148. So 4134 increases the state lodging tax. This is just kind of broad knowledge piece. So the state lodging tax is 1.5%. That is going to go up to 2.75% of every night that you stay in a hotel. And that is going to go to a variety of nature conservancy and wildlife protection programs, that increase. And then House Bill 4148 adjusts the local transient lodging tax distribution. So that locally applied tax that I think is in about 51 different cities and or counties is applied, and those dollars stayed there. That distribution used to be 70% had to be spent on tourism, and then 30% could be spent on particular functions and capital improvement and those types of things for cities or counties, depending who's applying it. 4148 adjusts that. So now that split is 50-50. And it allows certain cities and counties to spend down some of the saved money that had been in the tourism kind of bucket. And that's really part of what drove this conversation is there are a number of transient lodging tax areas that just have like they have more money than they can spend for the tourism, advertisement, those types of things. So it was really, hey, we need some local dollars. And the other component of it is it articulates that they can. So hopefully it'll improve it, although it doesn't direct that it needs to be done. Does allow local governments to provide their 50% or some of their 50% of their dollars to public safety entities, police, maybe a special law enforcement district or an EMS district to help purchase equipment and capital items. House Bill 48161, for me as an administrator of a fire district, probably the most directly impactful one that at least my board will see. A couple sessions ago, there was a bill that was passed that required us to start taking into account the value of a bottle of water if a board member had that out of their $50 stipend if they chose to take that. And it became this almost very burdensome and almost comical requirement under the law that was well-intentioned but very difficult to implement. And so 4161 reverses that and again allows us to provide food and certain merchandise to our board members or our public officials without having to track it and account for it against their compensation. Sean BC Olson had talked about Senate Bill 1551, that home hardening on residential properties, and then House Bill 4121 is a Spartacus bill that's out of Rep. Evans' office. He brought this forward last year. The broad idea is how do we improve emergency management across the state? How do we make sure that we have the right facilities, the right structure, the right staffing? And there's a few pieces in there that are interesting in terms of positions, but the one that I was going to highlight here speaks to volunteer and career firefighters for OSFM. And again, if you look at the definition in Oregon law of firefighter, that includes fire inspectors and fire investigators. But it requires OSFM to study the differences in, I'll say, workers' comp coverage and those types of things between volunteer and career firefighters. So looking downstream about how we can improve how we care and protect for our employees and our volunteers. And those are the bills that I kind of culled out of the broader package that we were engaged with or paying attention to. Much like Sean shared, you folks engaged on a number of bills. I think we provided testimony maybe 13 different occasions, either written or oral testimony. And the other thing that we do, OFMA does the same, is showing up and being present, letting the Capitol and the folks in the Capitol, whether it is chiefs of staff or whether it's legislators or whether it's LPROs, just let them know that we're attentive, that we want to be part of the conversation early. We want input, and if we have those, they're productive conversations. And it's not so much about us feeling victorious that a bill didn't pass. Like for example, a sheet metal bill last year or the year before. It's more about if we engage early, coming together as a stakeholder in this process to help the proponents of their bill also be successful. Nobody wants to get into a session and find themselves behind the gun, spending a lot of time to not be successful. So if we can be part of conversations early, we can make sure our interests are emphasized and that we can also help tie other stakeholders or partners into things. From how we interact with OFMA, I think OFCA recognizes, respects, and trusts the Oregon Fire Marshals Association and your members to be the technical experts and to lead the conversations on single stairwell, portable solar panels, whatever it may, smoke alarms, the sheet metal piece for ducting and fire alarms. Where we want to be is we want to be informed. We want to make sure that we understand your perspectives, and that we can at least speak intelligently enough that we can help defer things, help refer things, or help things move forward as appropriate. I think for me, every time I see something about code and legislation, I think about how many times Sean has emphasized, we don't legislate code. We don't legislate code. So that is always a key piece that I look at. And then again, where are the stakeholders and the partners in the conversation. So as I wrap up, and I'm happy to take any questions or turn it back over to Sean, who I'm sure would be happy to do the same. Really, my appreciation to OFMA, SDAO, Fire and Emergency Medical Services Chapter, OFDDA, the State Council of Firefighters, OVFA, lots of great work over the past couple of years, lots of great work this session. We can't do it alone. We don't want to do it alone, and we're better off when we work together. So thanks for the time. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Chief Stewart. Really appreciate it. Thank you for the overview and the details. At this point, we can open up for if you guys have any questions. We can take a couple minutes if you'd like, or we can conclude. So please let me know if you have any questions. We'll hold off here for a couple minutes. If not, feel free to reach out to any one of us to discuss these items further, and we could provide a little more detail. OFMA website, we do have a tab now that provides the testimony that we did submit. So if you guys wanted to take a look there, and we'll continue that same practice here once we gear up for a long session. So anybody have any questions for myself or Chief Stewart? Okay. Well, thank you so much for your guys' time. Chief, you have anything else?
No, again, appreciate everyone's time. If there's anything ever that I can do for you, feel free to reach out to me directly or get a hold of me through Chief Olson or one of the other Yahoos, and we'll be happy to try to sit down, figure out what we can do to help things move forward, answer questions. We're here to help everyone be successful. Thanks.
Sure. Thank you. See you, everyone.